Hi, I'm John Atack,
I'm Ursula Wake.
and this is Lyrical Wax. And this very day, we're going to talk about love found. So we've got some poems and we've got some lyrics, same sort of thing really, which are about the discovery of love and the beginnings of love. And it's quite a mixed bag. We've got stuff from all over the place. It's all great stuff, though. It's all we've spent years going through. Well, some hours.
You may have spent years.
An hour or
And
two.
we'll be coming back to it again and again as well, won't we? Because there's just so much stuff.
Yeah. So we thought we'd start with something incredibly popular, which is Tom York and Radiohead. Ursula will read Lucky.
Yes, Ursula will. Yeah. So all Radiohead songs are credited to Radiohead rather than any particular member. And as I've said in another episode, sometimes with lyrics, if there is a difference between what's written down and what is sung, then I'll choose one or the other, and that's just the way it is. So this is Lucky. I'm on a roll this time. I feel my luck could change. Kill me, Sarah. Kill me again with love. It's going to be a glorious day. Pull me out of the air crash. Pull me out of the lake. 'Cause I'm your superhero and we are standing on the edge. The head of state has called for me by name, but I don't have time for him. It's going to be a glorious day. I feel my luck could change. Pull me out of the air crash, pull me out of the lake, 'cause I'm your superhero and we are standing on the edge.
Splendid. Wonder if the head of state was Tony Blair. He was summoning all the pop stars of the time to pay court to him. And they were busy writing Hail to the Thief, you know.
That was later on.
Ah, well, I'm sure they were busy.
Get your
busy
Radiohead
it.
chronology right.
So
no, I really like this because I love the image of pulling somebody out of the air crash. So this is not it sounds like this isn't the first love. So there's kind of disasters that have happened in the past that many people experience, and that finding a new love does feel like being pulled out of the air crash or saved from drowning in a lake. But also there's that sense of being able to rely on the other person to do that. So I really like that image for that reason, that you are going to pull me out of the air crash, you are going to pull me out of the lake, because this is a fantastic new relationship. So
and at the same time the author is your superhero, so the author is being rescued, but the author is the superhero. So there's very interesting.
It's neat.
We're going to go way back in time.
Aren't we just?
This is a poem written by Christina Georgina Rosetti, whose dates are 1830 to 1894. She, if I remember rightly, is the other Rosetti, the famous painter's sister. Is that right?
I think so.
Yeah. And this is a wonderful love poem written by a woman who was a spinster, who didn't actually marry. And we don't know, but we don't know how. But I think it's a wonderful poem. It's called A Birthday. My heart is like a singing bird whose nest is in a watered shoot. My heart is like an apple tree whose boughs are bent with thick-set fruit. My heart is like a rainbow shell that paddles in a halcyon sea. My heart is gladder than all these, because my love is come to me. Raise me a dais of silk and down, hang it with vair and purple dyes, carve it in doves and pomegranates and peacocks with 100 eyes. Work it in gold and silver grapes, in leaves and silver fleur-de-lis, because the birthday of my life is come, my love is come to me.
That's lovely, isn't it?
It is. I mean, there are some quite complex things in it. So, for example, a rainbow shell, that's the abalone, was called a rainbow shell. So it's a kind of, it has a mother of pearl shell, shining shell.
Ah, right. Yeah, I assumed it was mother of pearl, but I didn't know anything about. Didn't know about no abalones.
I read the little thing it said about it. Said it was, halcyon is a kingfisher, halcyon sea, and we talk about halcyon days being the best days of our lives, which of course is right now. And also we have ver, that with a dais, which is a sort of prepared sort of stage for a king or an emperor to be seen upon. Of silk and down being the new feathers of birds, which are very soft and make very expensive pillows out of to this day. Hang it with ver, and that was a word I'd never heard before, but that's apparently expensive squirrel fur. I'm not sure what the difference between cheap and expensive squirrel fur is, but and of course fleur de lis, the symbol of the French kings.
Yeah. So there's something very flamboyant building up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a birthday. It's fantastic.
Marvellous.
Falling in love is like having all your birthdays come on the same day and getting something nice for a change, frankly. Getting the poetry book you asked for.
So I'm going to go a little bit further back in time again now to somebody, an English poet, John Donne, who a lot of people may be familiar with, who I think wrote some of the best love poetry in the English language ever, full stop.
And he was a vicar. Yeah.
He was. So he was a clergyman, and he was dean, whatever that is, head. He was kind of in charge of St Paul's Cathedral in London when he died. And there's a really interesting statue of him in St Paul's Cathedral that I think is worth checking out if you happen to be in the neighbourhood of St Paul's Cathedral.
Keep your mask on.
So it's a statue of him upright, but it's actually him in his shroud, and he's got his eyes closed. So it's kind of after death, with very sort of fancy little ruches of in his shroud at the top. But yeah, so upright but a dead figure. So that's quite interesting.
Still standing, although dead.
Yeah, and it's one of the few statues that's in the cathedral that survived the Great Fire of London in 1666. So he died about 30 years beforehand. But that's one of the few statues to survive, and I think it's really interesting.
And he's a contemporary of Shakespeare.
Yes, yeah. So it's a very famous poem. It's called The Good Morrow. I wonder by my troth what thou and I did till we loved. Were we not weaned till then, but sucked on country pleasures childishly? Or snorted we in the seven sleepers' den? 'Twas so, but this all pleasures fancies be. If ever any beauty I did see, which I desired and got, 'twas but a dream of thee. And now, good morrow to our waking souls, which watch not one another out of fear, for love all love of other sights controls, and makes one little room and everywhere. Let sea discoverers to new worlds have gone, let maps to others worlds on worlds have shown. Let us possess one world, each hath one, and is one. My face in thine eye, thine in mine appears, and true plain hearts do in the faces rest. Where can we find two better hemispheres, without sharp north, without declining west? Whatever dies was not mixed equally. If our two loves be one, both thou and I, love so alike, that none do slacken, none can die. I love that.
It's
Good
beautiful.
morrow to our waking souls.
Good morrow meaning hello, of course. Pretty much, as in tomorrow, the morrow that is yet to come. Very odd.
Yes, beautiful.
So we race from the 17th century into the 21st century.
Indeed.
And this is a Guy Garvey with Elbow. I think is one of the significant poets of our time. I really do.
Yeah, both when you read them.
And it's from a song called Mirror Ball. I plant the kind of kiss that wouldn't wake a baby on the self-same face that wouldn't let me sleep. And the street is singing with my feet, and dawn gives me a shadow I know to be taller. All down to you, dear. Everything has changed. My sorry name has made it to graffiti. I was looking for someone to complete me. Not anymore, dear. Everything has changed. And we made the moon our mirror ball. The streets an empty stage, the city sirens, violins. Everything has changed. So lift off, love. Lift off, love. We took the town to town last night. We kissed like we invented it. And now I know what every step is for. To lead me to your door. Know that while you sleep, everything has changed. We made the moon our mirror ball. The streets an empty stage. The city sirens, violins. Everything has changed. Everything has changed. Everything has changed. So lift off, love. Lift off, love. Down to you, dear. 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 Lift off, love. Down to you, dear.
Yeah, that's beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I like the fact that it works really well as a love song, even though there's something very specific about it being him after he'd become famous. My sorry name has made it to graffiti. So there's something very specific about the scenario, but it still works really beautifully as a piece of love poetry. Yeah.
It's wonderful. Okay, what do you have for us next?
Next, I have just a little bit further back into the 20th century, not that far back.
Do you remember the 20th century? They did things differently then.
So this is lyrics to a song by Nick Cave with the Bad Seeds. He used to write the songs.
Just to show that we're not excluding Australians from our show. That particular minority.
Is it? Right.
Yep.
Sorry.
That will be a brief laughter break.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how to respond to that. Yeah, so shall I just say, shall I state that he is Australian?
He's an Australian, and we're not prejudiced against Australians in any way. So we've been having this conversation about, that you get to all of the minorities and the types of people. So we had a spinster,
Yes,
Christina
that's right.
Rosetti,
And
and now having an
thinking-
Australian just to represent that minority.
In 2001 by Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, off the album No More Shall We Part, and this is called Sweetheart Come. Come over here, babe. It ain't that bad. I don't claim to understand the troubles that you've had, but the dogs you say they fed you to lay their muzzles in your lap, and the lions that they led you to lie down and take a nap. The ones you fear are wind and air, and I love you without measure. It seems we can be happy now, be it better late than never. Sweetheart, come, sweetheart, come, sweetheart, come to me. The burdens that you carry now are not of your creation, so let's not weep for their evil deeds, but for their lack of imagination. Today's the time for courage, babe, tomorrow can be for forgiving. And if he touches you again with his stupid hands, his life won't be worth living. Sweetheart, come, sweetheart, come, sweetheart, come to me. Walk with me now under the stars, for it's a clear and easy pleasure, and be happy in my company, for I love you without measure. Walk with me now under the stars, it's a safe and easy pleasure, It seems we can be happy now. It's late, but it ain't never. It's late, but it ain't never.
It's interesting that the language, the use of the word measure without measure, which is archaic by now. So he's using modern language and poetic language.
He does that quite a lot. He has quite a variety. Nick Cave has quite a lot of variety of tone in his lyrics, and will sort of sometimes use words like thou if it happens to suit his business, while also talking, using very different language. Yeah, I like that. And of course, Nick Cave is, for people who are familiar with him, is famous for not necessarily writing the most cheerful of lyrics a lot of the time.
I don't know what you're talking about.
But that is pure and simple loveliness. Would you not agree, John?
Well, it's not pure and simple loveliness, because there's a threat to her past lover in there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
pure and complex loveliness.
Yes.
And the dogs have turned around from eating her to sticking their muzzles in her lap. So, yeah.
Yes, it's true. It's not that simple. Yeah. And again, like Lucky, it's one of those where there's sort of an unpleasant past that is now past. And the emphasis is on, no, you don't need to, that's not part of your life anymore.
Yeah.
I love you without measure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Excellent. Now we come really up to very recent times. This is a poem that I wrote about you, or for you, originally in August of 2020. So, we've come from racing up now from the 17th century. The alarm wakes me. I dozed for an hour after you left. You are the song of angels. You are a river of desire. I am the most dedicated explorer. Delirious. I drift through bright foliage, the calls of exotic birds. I see butterflies from every language. Feel that I have never felt alive before, never known beauty. Spent my life among the shadows, unaware that this wonderful river existed. Colour is born today. There is one oblique reference in there, which is I see butterflies from every language, which is actually from one of your poems, writing about the names of butterflies in different languages. So I hope you noticed that. I hadn't.
I hadn't noticed.
Pay attention.
But I liked that. I remember mentioning that I really liked that image. It's very hard to comment on a poem that's been written about yourself. But yeah, I really like that. And Colour is Born Today. It's lovely. And I like the whole imagery of sort of the jungle types of the foliage and the exotic butterflies and all the colour. Yes.
Yes, it's to find oneself an explorer in a new and wonderful landscape.
Now, this is a very short one, translated from the Syrian. This is a poet I discovered relatively recently, Nizar Kabani. I hope I've got the emphasis right on that. So he's a 20th century Syrian poet. He was a diplomat as well as a poet. He wrote 34 books of poetry, and a lot of them, I think, have not been translated into English. Tiny proportion of Arabic poetry has been translated into English, apparently, I read recently.
Do you know if you wrote in Arabic or in Assyrian? There is a language called Syriac, I think.
Right. My understanding is he wrote in Arabic.
Yeah, okay.
You
said
know.
Syrian, you see, when you were talking.
Yes, yeah, he is. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So this is a very short poem. I hadn't told them about you, but they saw you bathing in my eyes. I hadn't told them about you, but they saw you in my written words. The perfume of love cannot be concealed.
So
It
true.
reminded me of a comment you made that a friend of yours speaking to you via Zoom, not even in the same room as you, said, something's changed, John.
Everything has changed. One of my favourite poets is Joni Mitchell. She herself said that she heard Bob Dylan and realised that you could use your poetry, you could do something with your poetry. So she did consider herself to be a poet. Unlike, say, Paul Simon, who says, well, I just write the words to fit the music, I'm only interested in the music, and who I would rank almost equally with Joni Mitchell as a poet. He's a remarkable writer.
Right, yeah.
So this is a song called Jericho, about falling in love. I'll try to keep myself open up to you. That's a promise that I made to love when it was new. Just like Jericho, I said. Let these walls come tumbling down. I said it like I'd finally found the way to keep the good feelings alive. I said it like it was something to strive for. I'll try to keep myself open up to you and approve your self-expression. I need that too. I need your confidence, baby, and the gift of your extra time. In turn, I'll give you mine. Sweet darling, it's a rich exchange. It seems to me it's a warm arrangement. Anyone will tell you just how hard it is to make and keep a friend. Maybe they'll short sell you, or maybe it's you, Judas, in the end, when you just can no longer pretend that you're getting what you need, or you're giving out anything for them to grow and feed on. I try to keep myself open up to you. It gets easier and easier to do. Just like Jericho, let these walls come tumbling down now. Let them fall right on the ground. Let all these dogs go running free, the wild and the gentle dogs kennelled in me.
The wild and the gentle dogs.
Kennelled in me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. And that feels really recognisable, that thing is right at the beginning of a relationship, that needing those walls, and then, just sort of gradually, when it's time, the walls come down.
And the recognition at the beginning, that anyone can tell you how hard it is to make and keep a friend. Maybe they'll short sell you, maybe it's you, Judas, in the end. So that caution as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which those of us who have been through the disaster and survived recognise.
Absolutely. This is the next one I'm going to read is another song. So this is by Bebe. She's a Spanish singer, very well known in Spain, very well respected. I love her stuff. So this is a song called Starving Animals. And it's quite stark for something where we're talking about sort of love found. There's something quite stark about this. But at the same time, we've had quite a few other situations that we've been reading about where there's there's a nervousness, there's a caution, there's a fear. And this one, for all its starkness, what I like about this is that the love feels so important to these people. And maybe you'll understand what I mean when I read it. Starving animals. My mouth without your kisses, a cliff. Without your hands, without your body, I wither. We are animals starved of love and of life. The spirit dies if it is not fed. 1,000 hours of images to scour with you. Do you recall what you saw? Your sleeping things, so many sleeping things, so many things so alike. It's been a while since you and I stopped seeing. Doors that you were closing, doors that I closed inside me. In the deep, without darkness, from your hand with your eyes and mine, diving, diving, diving. Let's hope love will not wear out from too much use. You say that will not happen if we feed it. You and I, starving animals. I will be your food. I will cook you, my love. You will be my food. You and I. Between your arms, my slenderness. Between mine, your body big and strong, feeding me. If you hurt me, I will have your head cut off and brought to me on a tray for me to mourn. You and me, starving animals.
So watch out.
Don't cross that woman.
And we will have a bonus episode where Ursula reads this in the Spanish, in the original. Which,
Yes.
It's beautiful, and we'll put a link to the song itself, because it's really beautiful. And there's so many strands of music that we don't hear. Just incredible music that for some reason is kept over there in a separate compartment. Here we are about to leave the European Union, and we never really joined it. The union with all this wonderful music, which thankfully we're still allowed to listen to. There's no tariff on it that prohibits us.
I would say just one word about beware of online lyrics translations, or online lyrics, actually. Quite a lot of them seem to be transcribed from hearing it, so there are then mistakes. And then some things are translated from various languages using, clearly, Google Translate, or other translation programs are available. But they're not great. There could well be things that aren't great in the translation I've just read. It was my own translation because I wasn't too keen on what I'd found online. But
probably a bit better than Google Translate, I would think.
I would hope
Hopefully.
so. But if anybody objects to anything that I've written, I take full responsibility for it. And but let me know.
But she will cut your head off and put it on a plate, so don't worry about it. Okay, we now move to a gentleman from Northern Ireland, whose name was Ivan Morrison, and perhaps it was a matter of letting go of the ego that took the I out of his name, and is known as Van Morrison. And I think he is one of the great contributors to popular music. From way back with Them and Here Comes the Night and Gloria, but then the astonishing Astral Weeks, which when you put it in the context of time, I think it's 1967, and he goes to New York and he says, right, I'm going to have these jazz musicians and make this completely new type of music.
Yeah.
Gentle, lyrical songs, and then Moondance after that, and quite a career. He's still recording, still putting albums out, and they're still good.
There's certainly more to him than Brown Eyed Girl that everybody knows.
Yeah. Okay, this is the song Sweet Thing. And I will stroll the merry way and jump the hedges first, and I will drink the clear, clean water for to quench my thirst, and I shall watch the ferry boats, and they'll get high on a bluer ocean against tomorrow's sky. And I will never grow so old again, and I will walk and talk in gardens all wet with rain. Oh, sweet thing, my sweet thing. And I shall drive my chariot down your streets and cry, hey, it's me, I'm dynamite, and I don't know why. And you shall take me strongly in your arms again, and I will not remember that I even felt the pain. We shall walk and talk in gardens all misty and wet with rain, and I will never, never, never grow so old again. Oh, sweet thing, my sweet thing. And I will raise my hand up into the nighttime sky and count the stars that's shining in your eye, just to dig it all and not to wonder. That's just fine, and I'll be satisfied not to read in between the lines. And I will walk and talk in gardens all wet with rain. And I will never, ever, ever, ever grow so old again. Oh, sugar baby, sweet thing, sugar baby, with your champagne eyes and your saint-like smile.
I love that line, I will never grow so old again.
Yeah, it's
Marvellous.
yeah, absolutely wonderful.
So this next one is a poem that I wrote about John. The inspiration for this came from a book by Bill Bryson called The Body. And in a chapter about the limits of human endurance, there was a bit about apparently only 12% of the planet is inhabitable. And there was a phrase, the rest of it is too hot, too cold, too arid, too lofty. And that's the title for this poem. Too hot, too cold, too arid, too lofty. Most of what surrounds us is uninhabitable. Too hot, too cold, too arid, too lofty. The rest is 12%. In most of our landscape we cannot settle. I find the same to be true of crowds. But you are other. More sheltering, more touchable, more temperate, more nurturing, more hospitable, more constant. You are 12%, and in being so, you are everything possible.
There you go.
There you go.
What it is to be the muse to your own muse. It's a very interesting experience.
Mutuality of musing.
Yeah, lots of amusing. So if you would give me Mr. Graves.
Oh yes, sorry, we have to share
To do
books
a
here.
bit of book
So
shuffling
yeah,
at this moment.
we're finishing off with that.
But I'm a huge fan of Robert Graves. He served as a captain of infantry in the trenches during World War One. He wrote one of the best statements about that war and its futility. His autobiography, Goodbye to All That. That was in, I think, 1926. It's a long time since I looked. It's a long time since I read it. I was a teenager. He then left England and went and lived in Mallorca. And apart from the Second World War, when it was not really possible to be there, that's where he made camp. He lived to be 90 years old. He wrote one book for every year of his life, 90 books. He's the translator of the Greek myths, one of the great classic scholars. He wrote I, Claudius and Claudius the God, which would ultimately be written by Jack Pullman into a very successful BBC TV series, which is based upon a profound understanding of Roman literature. He also wrote about the American Rebellion, the American Revolution. Sergeant Lamb of the Ninth preceded Sergeant Lamb. He wrote about the first woman to lead an expedition, the Isles of Unwisdom, which is where the captain of a Spanish expedition died and his wife took over to the Solomon Isles, the Isles of Unwisdom. He deconstructed and reconstructed the Christian Gospels, the Gospel of the Nazarene restored, and wrote a novel called King Jesus from that. And when asked about all of this, he said, I'm a poet and I have to make money, so I write novels. And there's a wonderful interview of him, which we can maybe find and refer to, where he's asked by an interviewer, and he's quite an old man by this time, he's asked, you only seem to write love poetry or something like that. And he said, is there some other kind? So we're going to wind up with Not to Sleep. Not to sleep all the night long, for pure joy, counting no sheep and careless of chimes, welcoming the dawn confabulation of birds, her children, who discuss idly fanciful details of the promised coming. Will she be wearing red or russet or blue or pure white? Whatever she wears, glorious. Not to sleep all the night long for pure joy. This is given to few, but at last to me. So that when I laugh and stretch and leap from bed, I shall glide downstairs, my feet brushing the carpet, in courtesy to civilised progression. Though, did I wish, I could soar through the open window and perch on a branch above, acceptable ally of the birds still alert, grumbling gently together.
I like the birds grumbling gently together.
A friend of mine met Robert Graves. She went to Mallorca in, I think, the early 1960s, and he had his leg in plaster because his current muse had just pushed him out of the window. So watch out, you know, you might get your head on a plate, you might get pushed out of a window, but it's worth it, you know, because you might get some good poetry out of it.
That's right, maybe he needed a tempestuous love life in order to keep that poetry going. If he'd found another genre of poetry, maybe he could have had a calmer love life, who knows?
He could have written war poetry. And I'm not, with his muses, it's interesting, his son wrote a very touching biography of him, and it would appear, it seems, that he was actually faithful to his wife, but he had beautiful women who would be the muse for him, and there was some sort of relationship going on. It's very hard to believe, and it was only, I presumed that he was actually, you know, because his wife is there with him throughout this, I presumed that there were the other women, but the relationship may have been, as it was, say, with Rumi, that he had a muse. There were three men, one after another, and there is no suggestion, and we know that Hafez, who comes in the next generation, was homosexual, and they wouldn't bury him in consecrated ground as a consequence, and one of the greatest poets who ever lived, Hafez. But Rumi, there's no suggestion that he was gay. He just, there were these men, and they had to be there to inspire him. You know, I've talked about you being a lens for me. So you see the world somehow through that person, and it, you know, the world, everything has changed, as Guy Garvey says. So we will return to the subject of love and different varieties of love as we go ahead, because love makes the world go round. You know, I mean, that's what we know. That's what the scientists have discovered, and it goes around very quickly as well, and it's travelling through space at 10,000 miles an hour or something. It's incredible, and that's all love. That's what's driving that. As Captain Beefheart said, the stars up above are running on love, and they're winking at you. So this is Lyrical Wax. I'm John Atack.
I'm Ursula Wake. Thank you.
Thank you.